Hi guys, can everybody hear us for the moment? Can I please get a few people to go into your chat windows and just type yes if you hear us, no if you, well, no wouldn't be too helpful. So, so if you can hear us, could you please go into your chat windows? It's on the bottom, middle to bottom section on your right. Great. So, guys, welcome to the first ever edition of the Ask Me Anything session. We're dedicating this one to the Darwin API. My name is Saif. I'm the CDS at Darwinex Labs, and we're joined by Javier Colón. He is the co-founder of Darwinex, as you all know very well. So today we have an agenda that we're going to go through here really quickly. We're going to go through specifics of the Darwin API, right through from the vision behind it to applications, its status as a tradable asset on its own. We're going to cover some case studies. We'll go through how to use the API. And more importantly, on the case studies segment, we'll go through actual examples. So we'll switch over from the PowerPoint screen over to my Python environment, as well as some web apps that you've probably seen developed during tutorials as well. So the very first thing we'd like to talk about is why we're releasing the Darwin API. I think it's something that's...
First of all, if anyone has a question, you can type it on the chat.
Yeah.
And if we consider that it might deserve to answer them immediately, we will do.
Mm-hmm.
In any other case, we will answer them at the end of the webinar, okay?
Yeah. And also for Spanish members of the audience, if you feel more comfortable asking a question in Spanish, please do so, and we'll respond here in English with the answer.
Yes, cool.
Okay, so Javi, let's talk about the efforts behind releasing the API. Like why the Darwin API?
Okay, yeah. First of all, I think, as you know, that we call ourselves Darwin Exchange. It means that we consider ourselves an exchange, and we did this decision was made just at the beginning of Darwinex, where we started with the company. It means that we wanted to not just doing the type social trading platform, so where you can follow the best traders and just like that. Instead of that, we decided to make a huge effort so that any trading strategy could be traded, and therefore we make a huge technology effort to make them quote, so that any Darwin right now, as you know, they have a quote, they start quoting at 100 when they go live.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment, any Darwin is similar to a stock in the sense that they have real quotes and you can trade them. Until now, we know that all the platform is, I think it's fragile to most of manual investor or manual traders,
mm-hmm.
but is not appropriate for any algorithmic approach.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why, and from the moment that we consider that the Darwin must be traded, we thought about of creating this Darwin API to share all the data we have, all the data we dealt in Darwinex Labs as well, so that anyone in our community can do the same research as with the same resources that we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This is the reason why. The second part is that you know that we have done tons of statistics, and one of them are our famous investable attributes. We've done tons of tests using them, and our conclusion is that they are not enough or sufficient to make a proper investment strategy. We consider it's a really valuable tool, but as I said, it's not enough. And at that point, we decided, okay, we can do two things. We can iterate and try to do them better, okay, yeah. Which it takes a lot of time, or we can give all the data to our users so that they can do their same, use the same data that we have used to try to do better than we have done, okay?
Yeah.
I think it's a much better proposition than trying to be ourselves the smarter guys in the industry and saying, no, we are the best ones and we are going to do the best investable attributes in the world. No? And we know it's really tough, difficult, and it's difficult to find a diagnostic score that fits to any trading strategy. Yeah. Said that, we can tell you that in the investable attributes are really valuable to understand what type of trading strategy is behind the Darwin.
Yeah,
you can,
that's for sure.
Know a lot of things based on how of the grades. For example, huge grades in opening and close strategy. It means that he's a mean reverted trader probably.
Yeah.
The loss aversion gives you a lot of insights too. If the market correlations, experience, anything that you can find from the investable attributes, I think it's really useful. And therefore, we also share this data with not only the quotes, we share also all the history of these investable grades to you, okay, so that you can use them.
In addition to some data that we'll talk about shortly.
Yes, of course. And then finally, as I mentioned that a little bit before, we don't consider ourselves the most clever guys in the world. We really believe that in the intelligence of the community, and that therefore we are sharing our data so that together we can find much better strategies that anyone has done until now. You must also consider that, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is the first attempt worldwide to assetize or to assetize trading strategies. We don't know how far we can get with that. Okay, I think this is a challenge, but at least we made the effort so that everyone has access to it. Okay, and I think we really think there is a lot of value on this data, and I'm going to try to explain you why. Let's go to the next.
Yeah.
This is the main reason when I started with my brother Juan with the idea of Darwinex. I was also already a trader for 15 years at that time. So I think I can consider myself an experienced trader. I've struggled a lot, like many of you, trying to find patterns in the market.
Yeah.
And my hypothesis is that if we look at this chart that we are disclosing to you, if you look on the left, for me, this is what we consider the market, the underlying strategy. Let's say it's an underlying asset, euro dollar. Euro dollar right now, it's full of noise, and it's really difficult for someone to find a pattern that repeats over and over so that you can exploit a trading strategy on it. Okay.
Yeah, it's very challenging.
It's very challenging, yes. Yeah. But when you consider how people, and when I say people, I'm meaning trading strategies or definition of trading strategies, if they, when they put this logic into the market and they trying to exploit some kind of pattern, what you get out of it is a much clearer signal and much better signal to try to trade, no? So that you can. Our hypothesis is this, no? So saying the interaction between a logic and the underlying strategy gets you a result that it's more exploitable to trade
than the raw asset itself, the conventional asset. So,
that's it.
So to just add a little bit here to what Javi said is, when you're dealing with a conventional asset, you've got a lot less signal than you'd prefer to have in something that you're trying to exploit for profit. So you have all this noise in raw conventional assets, and you have traders, Darwin providers, who are essentially filtering out the noise due to some edge, due to some exploration attempt that they've successfully conducted, right? So in terms of what you're looking at on the image, you have, as Javi explained, on the left-hand side, you have the raw asset that you would otherwise find very challenging to trade. But if you're considering a transformed asset, whereby the risk manager plus your trading strategy logic, aka the Darwin Providers logic, has resulted in reduction, sometimes significant reduction in that noise, you then have an asset where you have a lot more, it's a more statistically sound playground to exploit.
Yes, and it's not necessarily a Darwin that makes money.
Not necessarily,
any Darwin. Okay, any Darwin can give you some insights or new. It can allow you to eliminate the noise from the market, and for that, to demonstrate what we are saying, we did a simple research with the Darwin API, so that you have an idea of how powerful this can be. On those charts.
Can you guys see these charts, by the way? Can you please confirm if you can see these charts? Could somebody type something in the window, the chat window, please? So the issue, I found the issue. Now we have our solution. So guys, can you confirm now if you can see our screen? Because apparently we've been going through the content with the screen disabled. Is now paused. Right, we're now showing the application. So apologies for that, guys. We're just going to quickly go back. We're just going to quickly go through this slide here, yes, which is important. So the discussion earlier on that we were having with you, Javi primarily was talking about the asset, the conventional asset on the left-hand side of this image, transform strategies on the right-hand side of this image, and how the significant reduction of noise as a result of this transformation leads to assets that are hence
I think it should be much easier to find alpha on this transformation than from the underlying strategy, so from the underlying asset itself. And that's the hypothesis. Yes. Probably people will not agree with us.
Yes. But
I always say here at Darwinex, we truly, sometimes we work on beliefs.
Yeah.
And if we were not doing this, we'll never improve, no? So,
true, yeah.
As I said, and this is based on not only about my experience as a trader, it's what we were saying is that we did an approach with the Darwin API to try to demonstrate that this was true, okay?
Yes.
So go to the next slide.
Just a moment. There we go, we're back here now. So let's go to the next slide. Right.
So this is the study we did for 4 really known Darwins, LVS, NTI, HFD, THA. Any of these Darwin has more than 500K right now in investment. What we did is segment the trading performance of the Darwin based on each trading day as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Okay, each of these charts, what they display is the performance of each of these days. Okay,
cumulative returns
of these days.
Yes.
As if you were trading only in that Darwin on that day.
Yes.
This would be the performance you would get.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
If you consider that the market behaves every day the same way, no, the underlying strategy, you would never find out such difference in performance. It should be more or less random. You should make money at any day.
Anytime.
And this is something that it doesn't happen. Yeah. For example, as the first one, LBS, you can see that most of its performance is on Thursdays, no, Wednesdays.
Wednesdays, concentrated on Wednesdays.
It's concentrated on Wednesdays. It means that even if you're using the same logic at any day, what you can find out here is that the market, it's not reacting the same way to at those
every
days.
single
and
time.
If you don't do this filter of the Darwin, you will never see this.
Yes.
And you can do this, for example, for NTI. NTI, you can see in the right hand up, no, in the upper part
upper
on the
right chart, yes.
That he on Friday, no, I think it's Fridays. I think it was Mondays. No, I think that.
I'm just gonna quickly, because apologies for that. The go-to screen tends to cover our.
Yes.
Yes.
But here it says on Friday, but I think
Wednesdays as well, roughly. So this is.
Here it clearly has no alpha on that days.
Yes, exactly.
And it would be much better not to trade on NTI on those days. And here is no overfitting at all, because this is the histories of, I think, 4 or 5 years of.
In NTI's case, it's almost 7 years. And LBS is quite old as well. It's 5+ years for LBS. And THA is bordering on 4, I believe. So these are fairly mature.
So I think this would be illustrate exactly what we were saying, that markets, they don't behave exactly the same at any time, but for a human, it's really difficult to find those patterns. But using algorithmically information of the underlying strategy, then the evidence comes clear. Okay.
True.
So for me, it's a clear signal that probably there must be something to exploit using the Darwin data, okay?
Absolutely. And with a conventional asset, you wouldn't be able to decipher patterns of this nature. It's simply not possible. So,
by the way, I used those 4 Darwins because they are well known.
Yeah.
But we did the study with tons of Darwins, and this is something that happens with those who have a discipline inside of their training strategy, then you will find those patterns immediately.
Anybody with a definitive edge will show some pattern.
No, but even if without any hedge, that's what I'm saying.
Or as a hedge too, yes.
At the end, the most important thing is that there is a discipline behind.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's your turn, Ali.
Yeah. So obviously, having looked at this, we just mentioned that these are as Javi mentioned, these are 4 Darwins that we already knew of, right? So, but from an algorithmic trader's perspective, it's an inefficient technique or practice to go ahead and try to visually make a list of all the Darwins that you think fit this particular criteria. Ideally, you want to take into account certain factors. You want to take into account things like, well, this phenomenon could go through peaks and troughs, right? As it is on the charts that you see on your screen right now, the phenomenon changes over time, and you don't really know exactly how to go about allocating your resources based on it. So as an algorithmic trader, you want to do something dynamic, and you want to be able to engineer a solution whereby you could potentially scan 4 such Darwins by day, for instance. Perhaps you could have, in the context of this example, you could perhaps have a daily dynamically rebalanced portfolio, whereby you are creating a list of Darwins rank ordered by their returns so far over, let's say, some rolling window of period of returns, and then executing. So that's just an example. That's not investment advice. It's a pretty good example of what you could do with, with a situation like this. So to illustrate how that would work, so here's the visual side that you're looking at right now on your screen. But if you were to consider doing this algorithmically, one approach that we tested as a study, literally quite randomly, was, well, I would like to find Darwins like these without really knowing the Darwin. I don't want to be able to come up with the ticker. So if you were to correlate the evolution of the quote of each of these Darwins to the underlying series of day-wise returns, like we can see here. So here you don't see the quote series on its own, but you see the cumulative returns of each day plotted per Darwin. If you were to formalize this algorithmically, here's a correlation heat map with a threshold of 0.2, which essentially means that anything that exhibits a correlation above 0.2 is displayed as a colored box in this heat map, and everything else is dulled out to gray to make any potential alpha or conclusion more visible. And here we can see that for each of the Darwins that we were visually able to identify their good stretches. Here we have Wednesday, for instance, on the top left for LBS, and what we tried to do is come up with an algorithmic approach to find the correlation between the overall evolution of a Darwin's quote and its day-wise returns. And we found that in each of these cases, the conclusions we formed visually could be supported by this hypothesis using correlation of overall evolution to the day-wise cluster. So in LBS's case, for instance, where you clearly see the top left chart, the red curve being Wednesday's cumulative returns, are shown conclusively here with the overall evolution of LBS corresponding to a 0.65 positive correlation over time. In the case of NTI, that is inconclusive along all the different days, as it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday sort of hover between the 0.37 to 0.5 region. So you can't really sort of put a handle on which day it is you'd find, but what you can conclusively say is that there is alpha to be considered on those Thursday and Friday days. Then HFD's case, the same, Thursday, and in THA's case again, Wednesday. So if we go back to the charts for each of these guys, you'll see that the findings on the correlation side correspond to the concentration of cumulative returns in each of these charts compared to their overall evolution. So this is just an example, and all of this was done with the Darwin API, using the Darwin Info API in particular.
And just the quotes.
With just the quote.
Yes.
So you have all of this tactical information in just the quote. We haven't even looked at anything else yet. So these are some exciting use cases that you can study, and obviously all of this code will be available to you post this webinar. So, right, in terms of case studies?
No, there are tons of case studies. We are summarizing here, I think, the most important ones for to make to understand how powerful the Darwin API is. No?
Yeah.
in this case, for example, what we already said, optimizing Darwin performance. It's much more easier to outperform a Darwin who is already doing money than trading the underlying asset itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? Because even the best trader in the world, even if he has tried to do the best trading strategy in the world, he will not nail it. I mean,
never.
And with the Darwin API, I think even it's a good thing not just for someone who's going to trade the Darwin. It's also really good for the Darwin provider itself.
Yeah.
To optimize its trading performance. Okay.
Absolutely.
Can we say something I do? For example, I think most of you already know that I have a Darwin. It's called Uli, and the way it behaves, it allows me to trade it as well.
Yeah.
I have my trading strategy where I trade in my MT4, but I also, whenever I see a trading pattern clearly on my Darwin chart, then I also trade myself. I've done a lot of money on this.
On the Darwin.
So, on the Darwin, just because I cannot perform my trading strategy based on training myself. No? And this is something like people they don't realize how much you can improve just doing this as simple as what I'm saying right
Trading
now.
your own asset.
No, and trying to find more alpha on your Darwin. No? Just because even it's much easier for you because you are the one who built the trading strategy.
You understand it better than most people would.
Mm-hmm. Then one thing which is also really cool, and that's we're criticized a lot when we started with Darwinex, that saying that why the hell are you allowing anyone to create his Darwin? No, they're saying, hey, our answer was, okay, this is an exchange. We delegate the investor to know who is bad or good. Yeah. But most important thing is that we really believe in the power of having all the information possible available in the Darwin API. Good or bad. Or in the Darwin on our exchange. It's as good or bad. Because even as I said, even bad Darwins can give you some insights of what to do, even if you're in your own training strategy. Yeah, absolutely. And how you can do this. So for example, we did you can use all the Darwin data of all Darwins and just see how the community is behaving in terms of performance in real time. And this could be for example, a good indicator to know if the market right now is complicated or it's right now easy. Yeah. Easy means that a lot of Darwins are doing money. Complicated means that not too many Darwins are doing well at that moment. No? And being uncorrelated with this indicator, it's as simple as that. I think it's a good thing. No? That means that you're not doing what the mass is doing. No? Yeah, you're not following the herd. That's the point. Literally. So, but this type of analyst behaviors, you can, even for an educator, he can find out a lot of patterns to try to illustrate or help the traders that are starting, no? to avoid the most simple mistakes of when you start. No? And I think with all this information, you can really do good findings. No?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is a good opportunity to bring up what we discussed at RoboTrader. In fact, one of the things we discussed to continue what Javi just said about, so let's imagine so this is something that if there are guys here from the RoboTrader crowd, then you'll probably have heard this before, but for others, so we hypothesized that for volatility trading Darwins, like, the big hitters like your THAs and LVSs of the world that really sort of go one way or the other when volatility kicks in, what could you do if you yourself too have a volatility trading strategy, and that happens to be Darwin as well? But with the Darwin API, because we release tick level data, it is now possible for traders, even those who don't have Darwins, to go ahead and access tick level data for volatility clusters of Darwins, and then see what they would like to do before, during, and after a news release.
Yes,
of course. It's a very powerful concept.
Yes, you could say, okay, I will do a backtest using for example, northbound payroll, and see how a group of traders, which I think they are good or bad or whatever, how they react to these events, and I will do the opposite of this, or I'm going in favor of them in my MT4. this kind of things that can be done.
So you don't necessarily have to trade the Darwin. You can use it.
The information, you can use the information, as I said, for your trading strategy or for trading the Darwin itself.
So.
Another use case, which is also really powerful, is that from now on, you will be able to create your own widgets to display them on your desktop. You can create your own filters if you want. Maybe our filtering criteria, you don't like it right now. It's not flexible enough for you, so that you say, hey, I want to have something which is, and it's not in real time either.
No.
I think it's updated on a daily basis. So using the code, you could have a real-time filtering of the Darwin universe to decide if you want to trade a specific whatever event or whatever. No? And for that, as I said, always even if we do our best to have the best investor platform, it's impossible to fit everyone's everyone's feelings, everyone's ideas. No?
Exactly.
At the end, it's much better that people can create their own widgets, even if they want to share it with other people in the community.
Absolutely. And it allows you to be so much more flexible than a web-based application like the Darwin investor platform could ever be. It's not possible for us to fit 5,000 things into an investor platform.
But even if it would be a great success if people start doing widgets and so on. Because if they are helpful, we could even create an app store or something like this inside Darwinex, certify those who are really cool to share them or to sell them inside of the platform.
Absolutely.
It's something that could be done if we see that people are engaged with the Darwin API.
If there's enough interest, that's always a possibility. So trading the Darwin as you would anything else is something that you're very passionate about.
We were saying that why not using all your trading experience and trading knowledge and machine learning knowledge, whatever, to instead of using it in the underlying asset, the Eurodollar and so on, that we said already that it's really noisy and it's really difficult to find edge there. Why not use all your knowledge to do that on a Darwin?
And especially as an algorithmic trader, you're technically a data practitioner. If you're given noisy data and you have a noisy data source and you have a cleaner data source, but both have potentially the same varying levels of signal, but it's much clearer in the second cleaner data set, which of the ones are you going to choose as a data practitioner?
I'm not saying it will work. I'm not saying this, but I think it's
a strong option.
I would clearly recommend to at least to try and see if it's possible or not. And then finally, what we said, you could even create your own trading terminal if you want.
And we'll go through some.
Yes, you will see the show what we have done. No? So that so I mean that the case studies for the Darwin API is that the probabilities of it is amazing. It's on your hand that it prospers. No?
Absolutely.
We will do our best to have the most robust technology-wise solution so that you can trust on the Darwin API. This is our work. So we are going to give you the technology, but it's your decision to use it. But I truly think that you should try it because the test we have done, they display really
promising results
without doing too much, going too much into the detail.
And to reiterate what we talked about earlier, promising does not necessarily translate to performance. Don't think of for anyone using the API, don't consider just conclusive evidence as simply cumulative returns. There's plenty of use cases outside of performant trading. Hedging, as you mentioned earlier, dynamic portfolio construction based on varying traits. Like there's so much outside of the space of returns that you can use, and there's tremendous levels of data available to you in the API. And we'll go through all of that shortly as well. So,
what's this?
Oops, sorry, no, we have reached the end of our particular slides.
Yes. So now it's your turn.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip out of PowerPoint and we'll go through a quick. A lot of you, if you've been following the YouTube playlist we've got going, So that's essentially covered everything from the Darwin API's perspective and live streaming of quotes, Darwin quotes perspectives. So
by the way, sorry about interrupting you.
No.
Just to finish the introduction, in the next few days, we are going to open a new section in our community to trying to make you engage with it, so that any question or any research you do, you can share it there, and we will answer. If there's any question, we'll answer them as soon as we can.
Yeah. And our dev team hangs out there too.
But I truly believe that you should try to work together to do the best of this tool. Okay.
Yeah.
So as I said, it's better the knowledge of the entire community than working each of us alone.
Yeah.
And so we are going to release this section, as I said, probably
ASAP.
next Monday or so on.
Yeah, ASAP.
Okay.
ASAP is what we're gonna follow on that front. In terms of like how to use the API, we're not gonna go into a full tutorial series here, like on this webinar. I'll go through the bare bones of what you need to do to get access to it. And more importantly, we'll go through some examples of what happens when you use it. So let me quickly flip over to the API console. So the very first thing you want to do when trying to get access is to head over to darwinex.com. So let's just go to darwinex.com. You need to log into your account. And once you do that, GoToWebinar is a bit interesting with camera and presentation. So we're temporarily going to suspend the camera footage and go straight into, log into Integra Core 2. Log in over here, service temporary available. Oh, that's a great impression I put on a webinar. No, guys, that's just my cache, don't worry. That's just my cache and my plenty of ad blockers that are causing mayhem with some of my sites. So here we are. Good save, good save. Right. Okay, so you want to head over to Darwin's once you've logged into the platform, and then over here where it says Darwin API beta. To go through the specifics of generating tokens and everything, I recommend you visit our YouTube page. So let me take you over there so we can quickly have a look at where you need to go, and then you can do that in your own time. So first thing you need to do, search for Darwinex. Once you have found us, go over here, click on playlists, and once you're in the playlist section, here's the playlist that you're interested in. In this playlist grows by 2 to 3 videos on a weekly basis, and it follows a structure. So it starts from the very beginning of what you would need to do in order to access it, the basics of what I'm telling you, and it goes all the way through the Darwin Info API, Quotes API, WebSocket API, and soon Trading API and Investor Account Info APIs as well. Along the way, to keep things interesting, we also provide you with actual examples of how to go about doing interesting things with it, including algorithmic trading strategy research, right? So on that particular note, when we release a video, you'll also find that with every video release, you'll also have code provided to you. So for that, you need to go to github.com/DarwinX, where we host all our code repositories. And here you need to visit Darwin API Tutorials. Once you're inside here, you'll see that the structure of code that you see in the videos is maintained over here as is. And inside here, you'll find all the, not only the code, but any studies that we've done in particular. So for instance, one of the studies we did recently was the quant workflow tutorial. And once that loads, we'll get to that. But essentially, that's the gist of it. Going back to the platform, here we are. So this is, so we'll share code as well as code inside Jupyter notebooks. And the benefit, of course, to people who know what Jupyter, who use Jupyter, is that you'll end up having the ability to download the code, download the notebook, and play around with it on your own local instance as well. So this quant workflow strategy is an example of what you can do with the Darwin API if you are used to algorithmic trading strategy research using conventional assets. So you're normally using FX or whatever, stocks, futures, etc. anything that's applicable to a conventional asset is also equally applicable to the Darwin API, and we've worked hard to make it easy for you to use in similar ways as you do to conventional assets. If you feel there's something missing, like I've often been doing these tutorials and found something missing and gone to the dev team and gone, hey guys, before I shoot this tutorial, could you like add this please? And then they go, yeah, sure, man. Okay, done. And then we shoot the, hey, look, we have this too. So, so please help us do that and tell us about stuff that you feel is missing. And that way we can keep helping each other. In terms of going back for API access, you'll need to go access the API by generating your token. I can't click this button because all of the stuff that I'm going to show you shortly is going to get invalidated because this thing will generate new tokens for me, and then I will have to go away and start doing stuff. So anyway, you come here, you click generate token, you get things emailed to you. They include your client ID and your client secret, and you need to use these in conjunction with your Darwinex username and password, and that's it. In terms of what the API contains, please visit api.darwinex.com. I'm going to assume everybody can still see our screen. Could people please confirm if you can see my screen? Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. So this is the, thank you. Thanks, Mark. So here is api.darwinex.com, because it's kind of freaky. Like you go through this whole spiel and then you don't know if people heard you at all or saw the important stuff anyway. So yeah, you go to api.darwinex.com. If you've seen the videos that we've been visiting this page, almost every video we come here and we go through different things. Here's the Darwin Info API that's of particular interest to you from a research perspective and from a trading strategy R&D perspective. So you want to, here are all the endpoints that you can use to basically access all the different data sources that we have available to you in the Darwin asset. And these include your scores, the ability to generate just quotes. We also have detailed information specific to certain attributes. So for instance, two particular attributes that fit in that category are risk adjustment and risk stability. Inside risk adjustment, you have a wealth of information position-wise, such as open time, duration of positions, deleverage of positions, adjustment VAR, etc. Things that are not normally displayed right bang on the Darwin listing, but are displayed inside charts and internal tabs that you see on the Darwin platform. So all of that information is here. And going back to the API store, your quotes API, please visit the YouTube playlist to get a description of each of the specifics of accessing live streams of quotes if you'd like to create a Darwin trading terminal, or if you'd like to stream data into some application where you're essentially going to make a move in the market and you need real-time data for it. Trading API, investor account info API will also be updated on YouTube in the coming days. So that's essentially where you get all your information on how to access what in order to get what. In terms of examples, so we already showed you one example earlier on in the form of a PowerPoint, and I'm going to switch over to.
Well, you should also say that 2 days ago we released the FTP, no?
Yes, important. Thank you. 2 days ago or yesterday, anyway, this week.
I think it was yesterday, probably.
But this week it's out. We released access to. So now you have to take into consideration that because there's so much data to access, you're also going to run into issues of rate limits using the API, and that's a pain.
And no one wants this.
And no one wants this. I don't want it. Like I sit there and I do a study, and I'm like, Javi, this is going to take like 8 hours to download.
That consumes a lot of resources from us.
Yeah. So to make it easier for you to access and easier for us to maintain, our super guys upstairs in our development teams came up with a repository whereby historical data is now available to you, and you can just FTP your way through it. It's very large. It's a lot. So just download it at your own leisure. But it is certainly a more efficient way to backtest than trying to access data via the API, which you can, but make a few parts of coffee is going to take you a while. So this is here to request FTP access, and if you're algorithmic and it's a pain for you to download, I understand. I go through the same thing. If it's a pain for you, go back to GitHub, and we've written a script some time ago to solve the same problem. with regards to our tick data. So when we released our tick data, we did it again with the intention of maximizing utility to people and minimizing resource overhead for us so that we can serve each other well. And here you need to simply go to Darwinex Labs, the repository, then go over to tools, and in here click on Python, go to tick data, and these scripts over here are generic, so they're not specific to tick data. You can very simply change the FTP credentials and it takes you to the Darwin API repository instead, and then you can download that algorithmically through this content, through these scripts. They're written in Python. So if you know Python, that's great. If you don't, it's actually pretty self-explanatory if you want to learn it. So go for it. Give us a shout if you find any problems. But other than that,
probably you should also share the community website. I mean, so that they
the community.
In case they want to do questions.
Yeah, good point. So the community forum looks like so. So here we are. Once you've logged in, you'll need to log in to get there. I shouldn't really be that saves us some trouble. There we go. So this is what your community forum looks like. And if you've been here before, then this will obviously be familiar to you. If you haven't, then you'll see that currently there are, because I'm admin, you'll see some categories that on my screen that other people can see.
Release.
Yeah, but this one here that you see will be made public in the coming days. So we're going to open up the lock here and you'll be able to see this. Everybody will be able to see this. And this is a great opportunity for you to, I'll just take you in there now. We did this as a locked community in the beginning because we were very much in alpha state. In the very beginning, we didn't want more than just a specific group of beta testers to help us out because it can quickly get difficult. So there are very, very cool topics in here that we've sort of built together with this very close-knit group of people. And this will essentially open up to you. And then you now have more of a, you have a very strong foundation to come inside and start conversing, instead of coming to an empty category and going, right, what do I ask today, So now you've got a whole bunch of conversations, announcements. Our developers, our amazing developers, they hang out in here. So if you got a question, just post something to them. You can tag one of them or more, and they're usually very quick to help you out. So don't hesitate to interact with absolutely anyone, community members as well as staff in that category, in the Darwin API category. In terms of a lot of the stuff that I could show you right now will consume a lot of your time. I will show you certain things that I feel are interesting from a developer's perspective. So we've switched over to my Spider IDE. Could I please get someone to confirm in the chat window that you can see the Spider IDE and that the screen has flipped over okay? Could I get someone? Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Tim. Right. So if you've been watching the tutorials, then this Spider ID is obviously something that's familiar to you. Probably a lot of people making fun of me for using Spider, but that's okay. PyCharm, I get that a lot from my colleagues in the office. But no, I'm a Spider fan through and through. You don't have to use it. But at the end of the day, this is the project structure that we showed you earlier on GitHub. This is precisely how the data is structured in this tutorial environment that I've set up for you. And this is how we present it in our tutorials as well. In terms of the script that generated the data you saw earlier on in the PowerPoints, those were very much generated over here. This is the next bit of code that will be released for you on GitHub. When you're navigating GitHub, to give you a quick intro as to what exactly is contained, the GitHub repository is structured in a way that all the sub APIs that we have, so we have the investor account info API, quotes, trading, and WebSockets, each of those have their specific code inside them. And that corresponds to what you're seeing on this Spider instance, this Spider project right now. So you can literally download the entire repo and open it inside Spider to have access to this. But if not, you can open it in absolutely any ID that serves your purpose. That's not the issue. What we are going to demo here for you is something that we started doing in our most recent tutorial, which was the beginnings of a Darwin trading terminal that we're going to cook up live during our, well, not live, but recorded during tutorials, whereby piece by piece, we're going to put together this fascinating application that will resemble a trading platform.
Yes.
For any conventional.
And there's one for backend developers that he also read his own trading terminal on the iPhone. No, I think
on the iPhone. Yeah, it's iPhone app terminal. It's really cool. Yeah.
So that means that you can do tons of things.
Yeah. And our objective here will be to educate people on how to think along those lines and go ahead and show them how to use them in the API itself. So this was a script that we ran in, that we coded together in one of our most recent tutorials. And I'm just going to take us over to a browser very quickly. If you're not familiar with what I'm showing you right now, I encourage you to go to the YouTube playlist and watch the most recent tutorial on building a Darwin trading terminal. But I want to focus the rest of this session on actually showing you what it looks like and how it's drawing a parallel between conventional assets and Darwin's, again, to sort of revisit what we were talking about earlier, that you know, it's important to think along the lines of how can I approach the Darwin asset as a conventional asset. So we're going to open up the Dash app, which is very simply a chart at this point in time, because that's what we're looking at. That's the first phase of what we built, because we're on a journey. Can't build everything in one day. Can you guys confirm that you can see a price chart on my screen?
Should.
Yeah. Okay. You can see a chart. Yes. Great. Excellent. So this is an example of the various use cases that we've covered so far, the things we've discussed with Javi so far in terms of taking an entire universe of Darwins and approaching it like you would a conventional asset, and also taking existing approaches. In this particular case, we're looking at technical analysis indicators, but a large number of traders tend to take technical analysis to conventional assets like FX and stocks and futures, et cetera, and then apply those to them. So there's absolutely nothing stopping you from applying those to Darwin assets. But remember that the context changes. You're no longer applying technical analysis to a conventional asset. You're now applying it to a person, to someone's edge, and therefore the way you construe what you see out of technical data is also different. So we'll go through an example to demonstrate how that works. Let's go through, pick a Darwin. Pick a
Yours.
Darwin. PLF. Oh, we're looking at PLF. It doesn't look as nice as NTI. Let's use NTI. NTI, yeah. Okay, so he looks like that too. Okay, great. So yeah, I mean, if we were to apply, this first tutorial was to demonstrate that it is indeed possible to go ahead and do things like this. So we're going to just throw some random indicators on there. I'm not a technical trader, by the way, but this is something that I find fascinating, the ability to try and apply mathematical formulation to the Darwin asset and see if you can find patterns. So we throw our Bollinger Bands on there, and what else can we throw in the RSI and the stochastic RSI?
That's enough. Huh?
I think, yeah, okay, yeah, we're going to create an indicator soup, but essentially the reason for all of this is that it is, if you're familiar with Python, or any programming language whereby you can develop web apps of this nature and that have a REST API, or RESTful interface, the ability to communicate with a RESTful interface, and you can engineer solutions like this. And here, for instance, this application is incomplete, but our objective with the tutorials is to create a portfolio backtester, not just a singular one. So at this point in time, you do have the ability to render additional Darwins and dynamically calculate a portfolio. The reason I say it is incomplete is because this portfolio calculation is missing critical transaction costs.
Okay.
And it has inherent bias because I am literally picking Darwins on the spot and putting them into the screen. But the idea is to show you that using the Darwin API and some basic building block software engineering concepts that we're going to try our very hard best to explain to you and feed you code along the way, you can engineer some pretty slick solutions that are very similar to existing conventional asset-based terminals that you have. And by the end of this, we're going to try and have it give you all the features, give you example code to enable you to have features such as backtesting, live trading, analyses, alerts, things like that, to give you a very good foundation to build upon in future. So this was one of the examples that we did in the recent tutorial. In terms of going back to the Darwin code here, right? So most of this code has already been made available to you. Some of this code is specific to this environment. We talked earlier on about building additional indicators. So this was an example. What you just saw, the visual example, was technical analysis indicators taken straight out of TAlib and thrown onto a chart, really, and giving you the ability to add as many as you can. So this example code will help you formulate similar solutions. There are also cases where, from a machine learning or statistically oriented person, if you're a data practitioner, or if you're an algorithmic trader who, like me, doesn't use technicals, then you want to resort to other things. So we also did an example of how you can do that. So here's a very simple rolling Hurst exponent study that we did and released a video tutorial for, whereby you can compute the Hurst exponent for a particular time series over a rolling period and plot it over time for a particular Darwin to see Hurst exponent, meaning how does the Darwin phase between mean reversion, trending, and geometric Brownian motion over time. Is it random? Does it have trending phases? Does it have mean reverting phases? In what state is it in at this point in time? So this idea is to take us back to the conversation we had earlier on use cases. That what are the practical applications of these things to an algorithmic trader, to data practitioners, etc. So not to bore you any further with additional things, but the code base that you see here is in its entirety available to you on GitHub to play with, download, do what you like with it, and suggest ideas. We haven't yet had many people suggesting ideas. So to do that easily on GitHub, we'll quickly go back to GitHub for a second. If you find that there is something that you'd like to suggest as an improvement or addition to our tutorials, there are two ways to do it. Either write to info@darwinex.com or open a pull request. Fork the project first, go to Darwin API Tutorials, fork it, then go to the pull requests. Once you've made your edits to your own fork repo, submit your pull request, and we'll review it and add it to our repository. And it gives you exposure too. So, on your GitHub profile, you will have something that could possibly have been used with Darwinex Labs. So we think that's cool. Yes. Anyway, so I think that sort of concludes everything.
One thing I would like to add,
on my side, yeah.
Until now, so you can only go long on the Darwins.
Yeah.
And we are already on our internal interface. We already have quoting the reverse Darwin, so that. To really exploit both sides of the market, not just good Darwins, but also really those Darwins who are really bad at any time.
Systematic
losers, or at least that have more power to exploit the signal going short. And this is something we are studying. The problem here is how can we launch this without compromising the usability of our current investor platform, which is already complicated. We have several kinds of users right now, people who are traders, people who are really data science, and there are also just simple investors, and it's really difficult to find a way to have a platform which they can get all into it.
Information.
And that's the reason why disclosing or adding reverse or Darwins the ability of going short to the Darwin.
To create long-short portfolios.
Yes, it's a little bit complicated, and it can people can be confused. They're saying, hey, why are you releasing the possibility of going short a Darwin if your idea is to really give value to those who are making money. Why would you let people invest on short, and this money could go to someone who wants to go long? Probably you are hurting the good Darwins if we do this.
So there's an argument. There's a few arguments.
There are theorems to really be careful with what we do, but in terms of an algorithmic trader, well, probably one use case that we could do is just allow to go short algorithmically, for example, or for using it on the Darwin API.
Test bench.
Or something like this, but for now it's on the test phase, and
we are testing.
Yes, they are already quoting.
They exist. They're just not public. Yeah, we're working through some things.
The thing is that even a Darwin, even if it makes lose money, it can also the reverse Darwin can also lose money because of the spread, because you go on the other side of the spread, and at the end, if the Darwin is losing because of commissions, then at the end the other one is going to lose as well, because it's beating the spread, not the commission, so both will lose. But as I said, it's something that we have in mind, and we're testing it, and we'll have news on it probably in the next months. And well, I think from my side, I think I said everything.
Yeah.
I know if there are any.
So, do you guys have questions? I mean, an important part of this is to get on here and have you guys ask us about stuff.
Where you can see the questions.
The questions are over here. So sorry, we're still fairly noobster-like on GoToWebinar. Me in particular.
It's usually Juan and Jesus.
Juan and Jesus who do this. So I am hopeless with this thing. So I've literally been. You guys can still see us or the screen or just us, hopefully. Okay, so imported back into MT4. I think I'm going to expand these questions here so we can see them more clearly. Here we go.
So he's asking about tick data, but we already have some tutorials.
Yes. So
Tim is asking about how to download tick data from MT4. We have our own proprietary data that we release them, a repository that we offer them for free for our users in Darwinex, and I think there is you can share it with them. Share him if there's a tutorial about how to download it. Or
if you go to blog.darwinex.com, then you'll find. Well, actually, it's probably better if you do have programming experience. You can go to GitHub and download the MQL4 tool scripts. The other option is that with MT4 tick, this is not Darwin API specific, but it's good to help out on this instance.
It's trader.
It's a fellow trader in need of data. So yes, you can import our tick data either manually if you have programming experience in Python, for instance, you can use our scripts to create data frames and then export those data frames into CSVs and then upload the CSVs to your platform of choice. If in MetaTrader you'd like to upload data directly, you'll need to make sure that it conforms to the MetaTrader header format. I believe that's open, high, low, close volume for MT4 and open, high, low, close volume, real volume, and spread, if I'm not mistaken, for MT5. So that's one way to do it. If your question is specific to MT4, then there is another alternative. Now, if you're simply exporting data for the purposes of using on charts, then you're okay with using, if you have programming experience, you can use our scripts and just load the data as HST archives, which is the file format for MetaTrader 4. The other option is that we have, at this point in time, partnerships with some entities that facilitate, this exact thing. So for instance, you're using MetaTrader 4 and you would like to backtest using Darwinex tick data. At this point in time, we have a relationship with an entity which you can write into info@darwinex.com about, and you'll be provided with the information you need. And that solution is a downloadable software that serves Darwinex tick data and allows you to export that data directly into MetaTrader 4. TickStory solution ready is another question. We are working with TickStory at this point in time, and we are in talks with them. We do not have a definitive yes or no as to whether the solution is ready, since it's really everything is really to do with tick stories, and they're really busy, those guys. So we've been told that as soon as the availability is there, we'll be proceeding with that. But we are in talks with tick story, yes. Anybody got questions on the API or tick data? API tick data or Darwin tick data, sorry. Any other Darwin questions? No problem, Tim. Anybody got Darwin questions?
It seems everything is clear.
I think everybody's like super intelligent here. Like all of you guys need to send us like code like tomorrow and then like teach us stuff. So cool. Thanks for your time, I guess.
Yes, we'll see, or at least we will chat together in the community.
Yeah, we'll chat in the community.
And,
if you have,
trade carefully.
please.
And that's from me, and from my point, it's everything.
Yeah, so thanks for your attention. Hope you guys liked it. And if you have any feedback for us as to how you'd like to see these webinars in the future, if there are topics we didn't cover, we apologize. If there was something you were looking forward to that wasn't covered, let us know. Send us an email to info@darwinex.com, and we'll listen to everything, and we'll do our best to include it in future iterations. Also, if you'd like to see these regularly, let us know, and we'll do that too. So any questions other than what you've asked us so far, send us those emails and we'll take it from there. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.